Hi, I'm Fel, and I'm the creator of And We Love You, and you are listening to the True North Country Comics podcast.
Welcome to the True North Country Comics podcast, dedicated to promote Canadian comic book and graphic novel creators and supporters. I'm John Swinimer. If you want to drop me a line, you can contact me at john@truenorthcountrycomics.com. On this episode, I chat with Fel about And We Love You from Scout Comics. This podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and YouTube. Fel is an illustrator and writer from Toronto. She began her work in various fanzines and anthologies before launching her debut comic zine, Do You Believe in an Afterlife, in 2019. Her subsequent comic, the sci-fi action epic Commander Rao, was self-published to critical acclaim, winning the Best Comic Book Award for the 2020 Sequential Magazine Awards. The book has since been picked up by Scout Comics. Her newest book, And We Love You, is also published by Scout Comics. The story of And We Love You goes like this. They say war is a story told by the survivors, but what of the stories that never got told? Amidst a violent dystopia war, a young soldier perishes on the battlefield and begins to bleed out all her memories. Dripped away in blood-soaked panels, this is the powerful tale of one woman's life, death, and love, which transcends both. And now, without further ado, here's my chat with Fel about And We Love You from Scout Comics. So, Fel, thank you very much for taking time to chat with me.
Yeah, I am so excited to be back. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I appreciate your time. I remember the last time we met in person, I think, was TCAF last year, I think. Yeah, that was a pretty exciting time. So it's nice to be able to chat with you again. I know you've been making a lot of rounds on various podcasts, so I appreciate your time in talking with me. So thank you very much.
Oh, absolutely. I'm always happy to chat with especially a fellow Canadian.
Cool. Well, before I dive into all the questions, I want to ask you, what's on your bedside reading table? What are you reading today?
I actually have my pull list right beside me, actually. I was going through it right before the podcast. Let me take a look. So I have the issue 5 of The Least We Can Do from Image Comics. I'm reading Poison Ivy, Gargoyles, what else? Oh, Chroma from Image again. And After the End from Vault. And Hitomi and 20th Century Men, also from Image. There's a lot of Image books here. And A Guardian from Sourceport Press.
Cool. Where do you find the time to read all of them?
I just picked up my pull list yesterday, and I'm trying, my goal for this year is that instead of, spending the little time I have before going to bed scrolling mindlessly on the phone, I am trying to actually read some stuff so that my mountain of books don't stack too high. So that's my kind of New Year's resolution for this year.
Well, that's a good one to have for sure. I know I'm in the same boat. My pile just keeps growing. So it's true dedication to put time aside and get it done, so to speak. So more power to you for sure. So we're here talking about your book, your latest book called And We Love You. I wonder if you could talk a wee bit about it and what inspired you to create it.
So And We Love You is a 64-page one-shot about a soldier who unfortunately perishes on the battlefield of this dystopian war and begins to bleed out all her memories. It's also a prequel to my previous comic, Commander Rao, but it's completely standalone. If you haven't read Rao, you can still pick this up. If you have read Rao, then you'll probably get a lot more backstory and a lot more context to some of the things that happen there. And I wanted to create this comic because I've actually had this idea for forever, ever since 10 years ago. And I kind of struggled to make the idea of bleeding memories work because my art wasn't at the level that can make this comic come to life yet. So I kind of have just been redrawing this comic over and over again. And I think after Commander Rao came out, I was like, I couldn't make this work in the context of the Rao universe. And I think I finally have the skill to draw this comic. So I was like, well, I guess I'm just going to go for it and draw this comic.
That's great. I remember someone saying that it takes 1,000 hours to get something down pat or something like that. I don't know if that's true, but certainly redoing and getting it to your satisfaction, I think, is the key thing, right? You have to be happy with the end result before you give it to anyone else. That's good. And the other thing, too, about Commander Rao, you got to mention, it won the Best Comic Book Award for the 2020 Sequential Magazine Award. So congrats on that. And now you're expanding the universe a bit, right, of the Commander Rao universe, which is wonderful.
Yeah, like I'm really glad that people enjoyed Commander Rao. I think that was also one of the reasons that I was like, I want to make more of this. I want to, I want to explore the characters in the world a lot more. And I'm really glad to see that the audience have kind of taken to that as well and have, enjoyed And We Love You, at least from what I hear from them.
Absolutely. And thank you for sending along that preview copy that I got to read. It definitely tugs at the heartstrings. There's a lot of emotion in it, certainly action-packed as well. And as you say, it does expand the story of Commander Rao and as a prequel, I guess, right? That's pretty much what the story is.
Yeah, like it's a lot longer than Commander Rao is, but I think that's because I had a lot of ideas that predated Commander Rao, so I wanted to put all of that in and also make it work in universe.
As I was reading it, a couple things came to mind. There's a lot of context for this book. You mentioned fictional comic book stories and characters, but you also put some songs in there, and there's a song lyric that mentions "Come Away With Me, Arm in Arm." I'm not familiar with that song. Can you talk a wee bit about it?
Yeah, so that is an original lyric that I came up with in context for this story. Originally, I did want a real song in it. I think the original song that I put in there was Elephant Gun by Beirut. But I was talking to my editor, and my editor was like, there could be some issues with this, like especially with like copyright and stuff like that. And, I didn't want to get in trouble or anything. And my editor suggested just coming up with an original lyric, so that's kind of what I did. I really like to write poetry, so I thought this was kind of like, I guess, a neat way to bring that aspect of my writing in like a song fashion, so that I could also, put some poetry in it.
Absolutely. Maybe it'll actually inspire someone to create a real song with that lyric, so you never know.
Oh, that would be fun.
That would be cool. There we go. No, this setting of your book is wartime, futuristic, of course. But as we currently speak, the war between Russia and Ukraine is taking place. And unfortunately, it's affecting a lot of people. Now, I've heard you say this story was created almost 10 years ago. So the current war has nothing to do with how it was written. But I want to ask you, do you think the book and your story is a commentary on war and maybe leadership in war specifically?
Yeah, so obviously this comic is a very anti-war comic. Like, it's about war, but it's also about death, and it's about propaganda, and it's about, I guess getting vulnerable people to fight in these almost kind of pointless wars for them. And it was originally, the themes of it was inspired by a lot of stuff like World War I and World War II and the French Revolution. And in my head, it's like a commentary on kind of how it is very similar to those past wars, because history keeps on repeating itself and humanity can't learn from their mistakes. Unfortunately, I feel like some of that, as you said, is still very relevant today. So it is more of a general commentary on war, just in general. Any war, really, history, past, present, future. I think all war kind of have those underlying themes of, just being awful.
Right, exactly, yeah. Well, want to switch gears let's take a complete left turn, and let's talk about the tools used to create this book. You mentioned how it took you some time to do it, but I wonder if you could walk me through your workflow. What did you do to create this book?
Yeah, so I draw everything digitally. I use Clip Studio, but if we're going to go from the very beginning of creation, I started off with a script, and with that script, I handed it off to my editor, who we kind of went back and forth. Originally, it was supposed to be, I think, 48 pages, but it got expanded into 64 along the way, because my editor suggested that we, should have like more moments to, I guess, make some of the scenes like a little longer, so then you have more of a connection and more time with the characters, I guess. And then from then, I had like really ambitious layouts for this comic, because it's about bleeding memories, and I thought, I could really play around with this. So I experimented a lot with layouts and just trying to find an art style and a drawing technique to get those like almost blood borders to look effective. So I did that for like 3 months, just redrawing the first 2 pages over and over again on Clip Studio until finally I settled on like a style that could work for the rest of the comic. And then from then on, it was just a matter of, I guess, drawing it like, pencils, inks, colors, going back and editing it a billion times because I'm never happy. But eventually it had to be done. So then I had to stop looking at it and then send it off to my wonderful production guy, Ricky Lima, who helped me put the print file together, and everything looks beautiful. Oh, yes, and we also had it lettered by Lucas Gattoni. His letters are amazing, and they added so much to the comic, and then we put all that together, and that's how we got the comic.
That's great work, that's for sure. But I got to ask you, as I was looking through it, you said digital, but some of it looks like almost watercolor. Like, I'm amazed you can get that type of effect out of Clip Studio.
Yeah, I really like sort of like painterly effects. So I have a lot of, I guess, like painterly brushes in Clip Studio. So yeah, I have a lot of I really like the watercolor style, as you kind of noticed. So it's kind of nice that you mentioned that.
No, that is really cool. It's very striking. And especially, as you said, bleed emotion, I think you've said before. And I think that really comes through in the book, and certainly the artwork conveys that. So tremendously well done, for sure. That's for sure.
Thank you.
So And We Love You was originally the result of a successful Kickstarter, but now this book is being made available in bookstores. It's coming up very soon. Can you talk a wee bit about the process, how that happened from going from a Kickstarter to a product that's going into the stores?
Yeah. So originally, like my other comic, Commander Rao, was kind of had the same pipeline. I kickstarted it, the comic, and then pitched it to Scout, and they picked it up. And Scout is, they're kind of nice in that regard, where they kind of let you kickstart your books before putting them out themselves. I think they understand the Kickstarter market and the direct market are, at the end of the day, two separate markets. And, Kickstarter is a really good way to, I guess, make an advance for the creators. So yeah, I put And We Love You on Kickstarter first so I could get the money to pay my team. The Kickstarter edition is also a little different from the Scout version because the Kickstarter edition is perfect bound, so it looks more like, I guess, like a graphic novel than it is like a staple floppy. But yeah, and then after that, I it's a continuation of Commander Rao, and I asked Scout if they were interested in this book, and thankfully they said yes. So now it's going to be coming out soon.
That's amazing. Good stuff. Good for you. Good for you. So, as I said, I've heard you doing some podcast interviews. You're definitely making the rounds to get the promotion done. But I'm wondering, will you be attending any festivals or expositions this year to help promote the book?
I would like to, yeah. So I am going to be tabling at TCAF again in April 2023 at the Toronto Reference Library. So I'm very excited because last year tabling at TCAF was like my very first time tabling, and I had an absolute blast there. That's where I met you. So it was, yeah, I'm very excited to be back again. I am also hoping to, be able to go down to NYCC, not to table, but just kind of walk around and meet some folks. And yeah, I don't have any other planned tabling appearances so far, but really playing it by ear and seeing what opens up.
Absolutely. Well, lots of opportunities, that's for sure. Now, one of the things I wanted to get your feedback, and as I said, I was listening to your other podcast, and I noticed you have a true appreciation of Tom King's Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow series. And I don't know if you were watching the James Gunn DCU and movie announcements and TV announcements this week, but he mentioned how there's going to be a movie based on a series that you like. So I wanted to get your feedback on that. Is that something you're excited to see come to life?
Oh my God, I was so excited for that announcement. To be honest, I don't even remember what the other announcements were because I just saw Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, like movie adaptation, and then I just had the biggest fangirl scream ever. And then all my friends were messaging me being like, "Oh my God, did you see the announcement?" So then we were all just kind of collectively fangirling together. Like, I really love that book. It's one of my favorite DC books, and I think giving Supergirl a sword was just such a big-brained idea. So thank you to Tom King and Bill Quizevely, I think that's the artist, everyone at DC for actually making that book. And I am so excited for that movie.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's going to shock a few people, though, for people that were familiar with the Melissa Benoist TV series who might be going to see this will be, I wouldn't say disappointed, but they'll get a different view of Supergirl than that they traditionally have seen, I suppose.
Yeah, like I also really love the CW version. Despite what some people say, I thought it was it had some good moments, and I loved Melissa as Supergirl. You know, in an ideal world, it would be nice if they get her back, but I'm also very excited to see who they cast. I'm sure it's gonna be good.
Absolutely, for sure. Now, another announcement that came out was the Brave and Bold TV series. And I know the focus will be on Batman and Damian, but they did talk about the Bat family. And I know you're a big Batwoman J.H. Williams fan. Do you think there's any opportunity, and you're expecting Batwoman to show up in this series?
Oh, that would be so cool. I don't know if she would show up in like movie number 1, but I can see it. You know, if they made more Bat family movies down the line, they'll probably introduce like the Batgirls. And, you know, once they do that, maybe in like movie number 3, they're going to have like a little, you know, Bat family Avengers moment where they all come together. So hopefully the movie does well and we can get that.
That'd be good. Yeah. To continue that character story, I think there's a lot still to be told. That's for sure. So we've talked about, you know, Commander Rao. We've talked about And We Love You. But I'm wondering, what's next for you? What's your next big project that you can talk about?
Yeah, so I'm actually mostly working on just short stories right now. I'm in a couple of anthologies. There's one called Sharp Wit and the Company of Women that should be coming out this summer. It was kickstarted last year, and that's like a queer sword lady anthology. I'm in another one that should be coming soon on Kickstarter called Amongst the Stars, which is a sci-fi romance anthology. And to be honest, right now I'm doing a lot of writing. I am planning my next book, I guess. I really want to do a fantasy story, so I've been doing a lot of writing on that. I really want to make like a very, you know, completely opposite of Commander Rao, very wholesome YA story. So I'm also working on that. And yeah, we'll see which one of those comes out first.
Oh, very good. Very good. Well, where do you recommend that people go online to find out about your current and your future projects?
So the best place right now would be, for better or for worse, I am still on Twitter. It's probably the one I'm most active on. So if you would like to find me on Twitter, you can find me at @fellhound_. I am also on Instagram. You can find me at fell.hound. And I am even on Tumblr, which you can find me at fell-hound. And if you don't want to go on any of those things, I have a website, fellhoundart.com, which you can click on, and then you'll see a kind of history of all my comics and where to get them. And yeah, I think that is it.
Very good. Well, Fell, those are all the questions I have for you, but I'm wondering, is there something I didn't ask that you'd like to get across in this interview?
I guess just a final reminder, just And We Love You should be coming out in stores soon, and if you like queer war stories, if you want to know more about the Commander Rao universe, you can pick it up from Scout Comics, which should be coming out either end of February or beginning of March. And yeah, if you like the work, tell your friends. It would mean the world to me. And that's it.
Thanks to Fell for the chat. You can discover more about Fell on Instagram at fell.hound and online at fellhoundart.com. Thanks to you for listening to the True North Country Comics Podcast. True North Country Comics Podcast is copyright True North Country Comics, copyright 2023.